As we move into more of the infographics information, we need to understand how to think visually. So of course, initially when you think about how you think, do you think visually? So the left brain versus the right brain. Of course, we know left brain works a little bit differently than the right brain. So the left brain is more abstract, more logical, whereas the right brain tends to see things in images, more of an analogy. So if I were to say, what time is it? Someone who uses their left brain more dominantly would think in terms of 4 o'clock with the 400. Someone who uses their right brain would think of the face of a clock and maybe where those hands are pointing to 4 o'clock. Interesting little comment here that we always say that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Actually, Kodak engineers calculated that it's more like about 8 million, which is quite interesting. If you were to put a weight on that, I guess you could say, it would mean that basically one of those pictures is worth about 34 megabytes of data stored in your brain. Kind of an interesting little fact. But back to our thinking visually. So I would really encourage you to check out the notes on thinking visually that I have posted. There's a really great chart on left brain versus right brain. Things that the left brain kind of does and things that the right brain kind of does. And it's really interesting, and maybe you can kind of figure out which side of the brain you utilize more. So when we're working with clients and trying to build infographics, we have to understand how everyone thinks. So if I were to say, how much money is in your pocket? You might think, well, I don't have any money in my pocket, but let's say you did. So how much money is in your pocket? Do you think of the exact amount? Yep, I have $6.27. Or do you think of, well, I've got a $5 bill, I've got a $1 bill, I've got a quarter and 2 pennies. So depending on how you think, you will kind of come to that conclusion a bit differently. What's today's date? Again, one of those things that, how do you think? Someone may think of the exact date. Let's see, today is February 1st. Or you may picture a calendar and think, okay, it's the beginning of the week. It's this my week start on this day. And, you visually present that in your brain. So it's really a difference between a dominance in the right brain versus the left brain. So as designers, how do we approach that? Of course, our designs must choose to be visually informative to fully visually decorative. There's a lot of ways, though, that we think visually. So if I were to show you these simple icons, you might say, well, there's a check mark and there's someone pointing to the right and there's someone going, pointing up. Now, if I were to change that check mark to a red, you would say, well, instead of, it has more of a negative tone to it, where, gosh, red means that it's wrong. I got that question wrong. Or if I turn it to a green, you're like, well, I got that item done. Good, checked off my list. It's good. So there's a positive and a negative with just a simple symbol. And depending on the color, it presents a whole new attitude.